All right, let's talk about AGI, Artificial General Intelligence. It's this one little acronym that floods our news feeds with these insane visions of either a perfect utopia or, a complete apocalypse. But what is it really, and how close are we actually? Okay, let's get into it.
We have to start right here, with the timelines. Because they are getting shockingly short. Dimas Hassabis, the guy who runs Google DeepMind, one of the most advanced AI labs on the planet, thinks AGI is probably just 3 to 5 years away. And look, he's not the only one. The heads of OpenAI and Anthropic are saying very similar things. And this isn't some far-off sci-fi fantasy, This is a forecast from the very people building this stuff.
Okay, so that immediately brings up a massive question, right? Before we can even begin to talk about when AI is going to show up, we kind of need to agree on what it is we're even looking for. And as it turns out, the very definition of AI, well, it's been a moving target for decades.
So this is the classic textbook definition you'll see pretty much everywhere. It's all about having broad capabilities. The idea is an AI that can do basically any mental work a human can, whether that's writing a novel, discovering a new scientific principle, or proving a complex math theorem. But, and this is the key part, this simple idea starts to fall apart a little bit when you actually try to, pin it down and measure it.
And this is where it gets really interesting. Look at how the focus has totally shifted over time. Back in the 90s, it was all about building something with the complexity of a human brain, which was a very security-focused idea. Then, jump to 2018, and OpenAI comes along and reframes the whole thing around economics. Is it AGI if it can do most economically valuable work better than a human? And now, Google has this whole 5-level framework, where today's best models, like ChatGPT, are already considered level 1, or emerging AGI.
So this really gets to the heart of the debate, doesn't it? Is AGI about what it can do, its raw intellectual horsepower, or is it about the economic impact it can create? Is AGI achieved when a machine can think, like a physicist? Or is it when that machine adds $1 trillion to the global economy? The people at the top, they're really split on this.
So no matter what the exact definition is, why is this entire conversation hitting a fever pitch right now, at this very moment? Well, it's because the engine driving AI progress isn't just running anymore. It's absolutely redlining.
This progress doesn't just happen by magic. It's pure, hardcore engineering. And it basically boils down to these 4 things. First, they're just scaling everything up. Bigger models, way more data, insane amounts of computing power. Then, they're using reinforcement learning to teach the models not just to predict the next word, but to actually reason. They're also letting them think longer on tough problems and building these agent systems so they can tackle complex, multi-step projects all by themselves.
And wow, this chart just perfectly shows you the result of all that work. This is a test of science questions so hard that only PhDs can answer them. In 2023, the best model was barely better than just guessing. A little over a year later, a new model is on par with human PhDs, and just a few months after that, the next version is projected to surpass them. I mean, that's not just improvement, that is a straight-up vertical leap in a core part of intelligence. It's wild.
Okay, let's look at this progress from a different angle. Back in 2020, the most complicated task an AI could reliably nail was something a person could do in just a few seconds.
Now fast forward just 4 years. Today's best AI models can autonomously handle complex, real-world software engineering tasks that would take a skilled human engineer about an hour to solve.
So you have to ask yourself, right, if this trend keeps going, where does that take us? By 2028, we could be looking at AI agents that can single-handedly manage entire projects that normally take a team of humans weeks to complete. Just try to wrap your head around what that actually means for science, for medicine, for everything.
And this incredible, almost unbelievable speed, it brings us right to the central conflict of the whole AGI story. On the one hand, you have the promise of a world that is radically, fundamentally better, and on the other, you have the risk of a catastrophe we can't even comprehend.
I mean, the potential good here is almost impossible to overstate. Imagine AGI as this infinite source of brain power we can aim at our biggest problems, curing diseases, solving climate change, speeding up scientific discovery by hundreds of years. It could automate all the boring, repetitive work and unlock a whole new era of human creativity.
But, and it's a huge but, with that kind of power comes just as much risk. And the people who are actually building these things are terrifyingly aware of this.
And these risks are, well, they're profound. You've got the malicious use case, right?
bad actors using AGI to design new bioweapons or launch cyber attacks that no one can stop. You've got malfunctions, where these incredibly complex systems do something horribly wrong by accident. And then you have the big ones, total economic collapse and the ultimate fear, losing control of an intelligence that is far, far smarter than we are.
Now look, this isn't some fringe conspiracy theory. This statement was signed by the CEOs of OpenAI, Google DeepMind, and Anthropic, plus hundreds of the world's top AI researchers. They are literally putting the risk from the very technology they are creating on the exact same level as nuclear war. Just let that sink in for a second.
Okay, let's zoom in on one of those risks, the one that feels maybe the most immediate and personal, the complete demolition of our economy and the whole idea of work. Okay, here's the absolute key idea you have to get. AGI isn't just a better, faster worker that you hire. No, it's a completely new form of capital. It's a productive asset that a company owns, kind of like a fleet of robotic factories or a giant software platform. It doesn't get a salary.
And that changes the entire game. Think about it. Why would any company pay for expensive, sometimes slow human workers when they can just deploy this super intelligent AGI capital that can be copied 1,000,000 times over for basically the cost of electricity? In that kind of world, the economic demand for most human labor just collapses.
And basic economics tells us what happens next. When there's no demand for what you sell, in this case your brain power, the price just craters. In an economy completely dominated by AGI, the market value of human work, and with it, human wages, could logically fall towards zero. And this chart really just lays out the stark reality of that outcome. You could have a world with almost unimaginable wealth and productivity, but all of it is concentrated in the hands of the people who own the AGI. But for pretty much everyone else, the main way humans have participated in the economy for hundreds of years, by selling their labor, that's just gone.
So you see, this isn't just an economic problem anymore. It's a fundamental societal problem. It forces us to ask some really deep questions. If work is no longer the center of our lives and our economy, then how do we organize society? How do we completely rewrite the social contract?
And the solutions being thrown around are just as radical as the tech itself. I mean, we're talking about things like universal basic income, or UBI, where all that massive AGI wealth gets distributed back to every citizen. Or maybe AGI should be publicly owned, like a utility, so the profits benefit everyone. It also means we'd have to totally redesign education, moving away from training for a specific job and toward teaching people how to adapt and learn for their entire lives.
So, in the end, we kind of circle back to where we started, but with a much deeper, much more personal question. This whole race to AGI isn't really a technical challenge about building a machine. It's a human challenge. It's about redefining our own value, our economy, and what we want our society to look like. The question isn't if we need to have this conversation anymore. The real question is, can we have it now, before a crisis forces it upon us?